1-800-503-6550 and have your credit card handy when you call 1-800-503-6550. Call now.
Men out there, listen up, and we're going to be talking to you right about now on Kababayan LA. I know there are a few jobs available in the market, but there's so many applicants. And so how do you stand out and how do you beat out competition? We're going to be talking about that, giving you tips today on the show, how to dress for your good job interview and how to dress for the job you want in 2011. Alan Au from Jimmy Au's is joining us today on the show. Hello and welcome to Kababayan LA.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm happy that we have Jimmy Au's because you specialize on clothing for men 5'8" and under. Not a lot of Filipinos are taller than 5'8", and they say that it's difficult to really dress spiffy and look spiffy if you're on the shorter side. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it is a challenge. There aren't as many places to go to get clothing, and that's part of the reason why we specialize in what we do, is to expand the opportunity for Asian customers perhaps to find clothing that fits better for work and for play. Okay,
let's take a look at our model here. Let's call in our model. Yes. Okay. Looking spiffy and dapper. Okay, can you tell us, how do you dress for a job interview? The first thing that we need to keep in mind for the men out there.
The first thing you should keep in mind is that you should have a conservative suit.
What's a conservative suit?
Conservative meaning a dark blue, navy, charcoal perhaps, but not black. Black is not okay for an interview.
Why is that?
It's too formal, and it's also it looks too much like you're going to a funeral. So you don't want to do that. And navy's most of the time you're strongest because navy is a color people feel is trustworthy.
Oh, okay. What about pinstripe suits?
Pinstripes can be okay. The trick is, though, for many who are shorter, is to look taller. And pinstripes are good. And currently, the fashion trend right now are narrow stripes. As you could probably see on JD, the suit stripes here are very narrow, and it's elongating at perhaps an interview or social distance. But from farther away, it looks like a solid navy suit, so it works for both.
What about single breast or double breast?
That depends on the person. Right now, single-breasted is more in fashion, and you can wear 2 or 3 button depending on the build of your torso. Right now, one of the things that's really important when you dress for an interview is to make sure you're comfortable. A lot of the fashion trend right now is very trim and perhaps too tight. Maybe you're not comfortable in it. So maybe you want to go with something a little looser, but be aware of how those fits are. And if you have like an older shirt you haven't been wearing for an interview and it's too tight, maybe you should buy a new shirt so you're not going like this because you haven't worn it in a while, or it's too snug, or the waist is too tight.
To button or unbutton?
It should be buttoned when you enter a room and unbuttoned when you sit down. If you have a tendency to keep your jacket buttoned, it says you're nervous. And so the interviewer is going to see that.
Okay, now tell me, do you really have to be in a suit when you go for a job interview? Because some companies, they have a more relaxed dress code.
Yes. I would be more relaxed after you get the job, but the general consensus is that you should research the company that you are trying to interview for, find out what their corporate culture is. Perhaps they are more casual, but for interview purposes, you should always dress at least conservatively and look professional.
Is there such a thing as dressing for the current economic environment? Can you explain that to us?
Yes. The big thing right now is that we are still coming out of a recession, and some people say that's not even happening, so therefore you should dress more conservatively.
Okay. Meaning no jewelry? Or?
Not to wear flashy pinstripes, maybe not a flashy tie.
Okay.
Be able to choose things that make people feel like you're concerned about your job and about the company. Flashy is not the time right now.
What's a flashy tie? So say, for example, our model earlier, JD, he was wearing like a pinstripe tie, or I mean a striped tie, lavender or purple. Is that something?
That's okay. Yeah? That's okay. Purple right now is a very hot trend, but you can utilize that in a more conservative manner by wearing a striped tie. I wouldn't do something too bright, perhaps like a day glow green
or
too bright or orange or any color that might have been okay 10 years ago or for clubbing isn't appropriate for an interview.
What about prints? Stripes are okay?
Yes.
What about
stripes?
flowers if you're interviewing during the spring?
It depends. I'd say if you are interviewing for something in the business sector, financial, you might want to stay more conservative. However, if you are in a more creative field, marketing, you could probably be a little more open with your tie choices that says that you are creative. Just like those in the creative field can move away from navy, maybe choose a brown or olive. Maybe even wear a sport coat instead. It just depends. You have to know the field that you're going after.
And that is why the first step or the first tip is to research on the dress code and the kind of company that you are going or you're trying to get into. And we're going to be talking about more tips when we return on the show. Don't go away.